Hello, welcome to another Purple Insider Extra. Matthew Coller here, along with Sam Ekstrom, as we just walked off the practice field again here at TCO Performance Center in a day in which we did not see Anthony Barr on the field, and Mike Zimmer said he is, quote, dealing with something. Sam, tell me if you're worried. Give me your panic meter about Anthony Barr dealing with something.
Hard to know how much to worry when we don't know what that something is. Is it a toe? Is it an ankle? Is it a knee? What does concern me is that he's been in and out a couple times. Missed a day, missed 2 days, but then came back and then was out again. So something is nagging ostensibly, and that does concern me. When someone is trying to come back, unable to do it, I start thinking of, hamstring, groin, stuff that typically pops up kind of like it has with Christian Darrisaw. And Mike Zimmer's going to be cautious with someone of Anthony Barr's ilk, but I am a little bit worried, and I don't know if we're going to get a straight answer on exactly what's ailing Anthony Barr, but it does appear to be an injury that's kept him out for, 6 of the last 8 practices or so.
Well, we do have plenty of time before the season, and I don't think that Anthony Barr needs a ton of ramp up when it comes to preseason games. I don't think he needs to get in any to be a good NFL player at linebacker in a Mike Zimmer defense, which he has run for a very long time. But if it is something that becomes a problem throughout the season and he can't recover within this next couple of weeks, then we're looking at that linebacker depth chart and saying, okay, who's next man up after Nick Vigil? The Vikings signed Nick Vigil in the offseason. He's got previous starting experience, so you figure that he can hold the fort down. But in previous years, they had Eric Wilson. Eric Wilson was a tremendous player for a backup who could step in, get an interception, get a sack. And even over a long period of time, I think Eric Wilson proved he could play. I'm not so sure that that's necessarily the case with Nick Vigil, but I'm definitely sure that it's not with the backup linebackers. We saw Troy Dye struggle in the preseason game. Ryan Connolly made a nice play out there. Ryan Connolly is a linebacker on the team. And I actually think that Ryan Connolly, who has some previous NFL experience, I think with the Giants, would be the next man up. And that's where you start to go, okay, Anthony Barr better be healthy.
Yeah, Mike Zimmer has been so negative about the young linebackers. I think we went into training camp talking about Troy Dye, Chaz Surratt, Cameron Smith as candidates, to compete with Nick Vigil for sort of that third spot. And I think Vigil's going to win that third spot, but the other 3 are nowhere in sight, and it almost looks like Blake Lynch and Ryan Connolly are sort of the next 2 in line, and there could be a surprise cut here, Collar. I don't know if Troy Dye is guaranteed to be on this team. I don't know if Cameron Smith is guaranteed to be on this team. Surratt probably makes it because he's a rookie and he's a 4th-round pick, or no, a 3rd-round pick. But the linebackers have not impressed Mike Zimmer, and if there is an injury, then Eric Wilson's not here to bail you out.
Well, let's talk about Jake Browning and Kellen Mond. So Jake Browning throws the pick 6 in the preseason game. Kellen Mond goes 6 for 16. So let's just call it even from those 2 quarterbacks in the first preseason game. But the first couple of days of practice following the preseason game, we have seen Jake Browning continue to take the QB2 reps. I have not seen Kellen Mond take a single rep with the second team, meaning that he is still going to be the 3rd man in line, very likely when they play against the Indianapolis Colts on Saturday. Do you think that there is anything Kellen Mond can do if he comes out, plays extremely well, looks like he's in command, and Jake Browning struggles? Do you think that would flip the depth chart, or are we too far down the Browning road? And by the way, give Browning credit today. He made a couple of really nice throws, including one that I think someone was yelling that should be a touchdown, a deep pass to, I think it was Amir Smith-Marset down the sideline. So Jake Browning has looked okay in practice over the last 2 days, but can Kellen Mond catch him, especially since Mike Zimmer said that he had his best practice yesterday?
He did allegedly have his best practice yesterday. We watched him pretty closely today, and I don't know if he followed it up. There were a lot of hesitant dropbacks, potentially sacked a number of times, a little bit inaccurate. I don't think he followed it up very well, and he didn't get many reps either. And Collar, we're running out of time. I mean, there's 3 practices next week in between the 2 games. And then after that, they're cutting down the roster, and then they go into regular season mode where you kind of want to have your depth chart figured out. So I don't know if they'll take this up until the final practice to decide who their backup is. But Mond does not have much time. I mean, if he doesn't make hay in, this game, 3 practices after, and then the game after that, so basically 5 chances, I think, to sort of prove himself. I think Browning still hangs on to that job. I think Mond will have to be much, much more decisive with the football in these upcoming games.
I would be very surprised, but I think it would really show some quick progress from Kellen Mond. Agree with you that he did not follow it up very well today. A lot of sacks today for all the quarterbacks. I thought it was a tough day for the offensive line. Now, Michael Pierce, when we spoke with him today, said, guys, I'm playing. It's actually the first time I've ever seen a Viking player say that. Maybe Mike Zimmer hasn't had a talk with him yet, because he came right out and said, I am playing on Saturday. I'll be in there. We asked Delvin Tomlinson. He said, I expect to be in there as well, which would indicate the Vikings will play many more starters against the Indianapolis Colts. Is that a good idea to you and a bad idea? And then tack on, Sam, what you want to see from starters.
Yeah, I guess I'm not thrilled with the idea of just flatly playing all the starters if that's what they plan to do, and maybe they still hold out the Kendricks and the Harrison Smiths and the Danielle Hunters, but it sounds like they're going to play a little bit. I wouldn't recommend they do the full-on dress rehearsal, which in the past has meant like at least a half of football. I think keep it to sort of a normal second preseason game, which is a few drives. That to me is at least somewhat acceptable, and I wouldn't mind seeing this offensive line get some work because I think they need it the most. So presumably we will see that. What do we expect from the offense? I want to see what Clint Kubiak has in store. I want to see like good play calling sequences. I want to see if Kirk Cousins has a little better chemistry in the game than he has had in practice, where it hasn't really clicked that well so far in August. And on the defensive side, can you put up some more resistance than the second team did against the Denver Broncos? And what's your pass rush going to look like? I'm so curious to see the Pierce-Tomlinson combo on the inside. I think I'm going to have my eyes on the trenches for sure.
Yeah, the starters outside of the offensive line, I'm not so sure there's a whole lot of intrigue there. A lot of veteran players, not too many young guys that are going to be relied upon here. But Oli Udoh at right guard is sort of Oli Udoh on the marquee for this game, because he becomes the most interesting, even just to watch him for a handful of reps. But he's going to go against presumably some NFL starters or proven NFL players with the Indianapolis Colts, so you want to see how Oli Udoh looks with a real pass rush. The only thing about it is they're not running stunts, they're not running games, blitzes, things like that, so it's really just how does he look one-on-one as the guy who is locked in now as the official starter. It does not seem like we're going to see Justin Jefferson anytime soon. Now, Justin Jefferson at the podium today was talking about how everybody came up to him and said, I've had an AC sprain. It's happened many times, and it is very common. Even when he got hurt, our friend Jeremiah Searles texted me and said, I've seen that before. That's an AC joint sprain. But then didn't practice today. And he had gotten on the field yesterday for a couple of reps, only 1 or 2. But nothing that we saw today from Justin Jefferson. I don't think we're going to see him in preseason games, but should they try to get him in the third preseason game to just get a little bit of ramp up if he is willing? And also, what date, I guess, is the date where we start to go, okay, he should be practicing by now?
I don't care if he gets any preseason reps. I don't think there's any reason to think that, and he said this at the podium today. He didn't have preseason last year.
Right.
And it went okay for him. So I think you hold him out. It makes sense to me that they would do 1 day on, 1 day off, coming off an injury with somebody. I would expect to see him on the field tomorrow, and maybe if we don't see him taking live reps, maybe there's some concern. But it wasn't like there was a tweak or anything. We saw him on the sideline play and catch and kind of running around. I think this was just a precautionary day off following a day on. Nothing to be worried about. And I guess if he weren't practicing in full by the week after the final preseason game, then my alarm bells start ringing, but I don't think we're going to get there. I think he's going to be all right.
I feel the same way, that it really comes down to that first week of real practices where we're on the normal practice schedule. Then we can figure it out. Until then, totally okay to have Justin Jefferson take it easy. Last thing for you, Sam. Chad Beebe, back at practice today, was not there yesterday, looked totally fine, made a couple of catches. Is he wide receiver 3? After all the conversations that we have, this guy is jockeying for position, this guy's doing this. Is it going to be Chad Beebe again?
Hey, the Vikings on their depth chart put Beebe and Osborne lateral. They didn't want to choose between them. They put them both as wide receiver 3. Osborne had a great day today as well. Caught a nice fade, caught a nice slant. Osborne was great. But Beebe is consistent, and he has done this before. You know, he's earned the job, and he's been on the field, and the team likes what he brings. I still think Osborne, if all things are equal, he's got more explosive capability. I think he's got just as good a speed. I think he's got just as good a hands. I think he just gives you everything Beebe does and more. Assuming that he knows, how to run the offense and which plays to run properly, I think that still is your guy. But Chad Beebe's making the team. A lot of people, and myself included, have raised his roster spot, into question. I do think Beebe makes this club. And maybe it's by committee. I think that's also realistic to say that Osborne and Beebe could share reps for that wide receiver 3 spot.
I think so too. Sam Ekstrom, Matthew Coller from TCO Performance Center. We'll do it again tomorrow here and have another new report for you. We'll catch you then on Purple Insider Extra.